I loved being in the Navy. I loved cooking. But all of a sudden, we found ourselves in 2 wars. And even though everybody's got a role to play in the military, every job is important, I just, I didn't feel as though my talents and abilities and this newfound pride and service were being put to the best use. I was watching both wars unfold on the television, even though I was on board the ship. So I volunteered for my first deployment to Afghanistan as a cook. And I went for cooking for the admiral and his top brass, about 35 or so, to cooking for hundreds of ISAF NATO troops in the middle of Farah, Afghanistan. I was filling an army billet, running the chow hall, the DFAC, in Afghanistan. Ironically enough, or coincidentally, there were a couple platoons of Italian special forces there, so I got to practice the lingo I'd learned in Italy, in Afghanistan. But it was while I was on that first deployment as a cook that I met some EOD techs. These guys had dumped out all the gear from their armored truck, the Jerv, and they had the bomb suits and robots and all that stuff out in the parking lot right by the chow hall doing PMCS, maintenance checks on everything, make sure batteries and everything work. And I went and just struck up a conversation with these guys and found out about the technical aspect of the job, the challenge it was. And I found out about the tight-knit brotherhood within the military, just like special forces. These guys are tight-knit. And the fact that it's a first responder job. It's a life-saving job on the battlefield. Everything about it just clicked. This is what I was meant to do. So I put in my chip, that request to go from Navy cook to Navy bomb tech, and it was promptly denied. I guess they like my cooking too much. But the truth was that it's just all about manpower. My rank was undermanned. The next rank up was also overmanned. So not only weren't they going to let me go EOD, they weren't letting me go anywhere, even up. So when that deployment was nearing an end, so was my contract. I just let it expire, ended my enlistment with the Navy, and went over to an Army recruiter, and I handed over my service record and said, I want to go EOD. And of course, with the battlefield being what it was overseas, they were eager to take on a new EOD recruit.
Yeah. What was the training like?
It was interesting, going from sailor to soldier.
You had to go to boot camp all over? Basic training?
Yeah, it was definitely different. But I didn't go to basic training.
Okay.
They had this, it was like a pilot program called the Warrior Transition Course. It's like a gentleman's school, gentleman version of basic, where you get the knowledge-based stuff, the physical fitness stuff, but you don't get the indoctrination, the dogma.
And learn about the Army, the rank structure, the history, tradition.
Most of the recruits, or students, so to speak, were the same rank as the drill sergeants. It's like, you drop. No, you drop. But the truth was, it was fine. You live in the open bay. You do some of the soldiering stuff. But in truth, I was wearing a different uniform, but I'm still kind of a salty sailor at heart. And then after becoming an official soldier, then I'll go to the AOD school. And in truth, when I look back on it, it was like I went from sailor to EOD rather than sailor to soldier. And nothing against the Army.
How many months is Army EOD school?
Well, the EOD school, every branch has their own phase 1, but then they send all of their EOD candidates to the joint. It's a Navy-run school at Eglin Air Force Base in the Florida Panhandle. So, and part of the reason is that everybody learns the same stuff. and everybody learns how to speak the same language. You know, across branches, the same word means different things. And you're not allowed to say hooah or hoo-ya or hoorah, because that alone can mean 100 different things. So everybody learns how to speak the same language. They all learn EOD together. So when it comes to go time on the battlefield, you can pair an Air Force tech with a Marine tech, and they can just work together seamlessly when it really counts. And
Interesting. Yeah.
the training is in total about a year long. You take a test on something on average every 2 to 3 days. So the op tempo, the student tempo there it's high paced. There's a high attrition rate, and it's challenging, but it's mostly knowledge based stuff. Because there's so many munitions out there, hundreds of thousands of munitions that you can't teach every single one. So you got to go down to the basics: electronics, chemistry, physics, and the basic ordnance identification. There's so much. It's part of what brings us all together is the challenge just of getting through the school.
You become an Army EOD tech, and you deploy to Iraq or Afghanistan first?
Iraq.
Iraq. And so what was operations like in Iraq? I mean, you're dealing with new types of munitions on a battlefield as IEDs and Soleimani's guys out there planning.
In Iraq, this was, by the time I deployed there, it was about 2010. And President Obama was in office we're pulling out, handing everything over to our Iraqi partners. So what was interesting about that is that I got to transfer over from Navy to Army, keeping my E5 rank. I had some time in service, so I was promoted pretty quickly to staff sergeant. But that is a team leader rank. And I was expected not just to learn how to be an EOD tech, but learn how to be a team leader fast. So I was assigned as a fourth person on a 3-person team with another sergeant team leader. And I was expected to learn the job and that position, like drinking from a fire hose. So what happened was once I got to Iraq, they also placed me in the triage section of the Counter-Explosive Exploitation Cell of Task Force Troy. And this is where the evidence from the battlefield comes. So I talked a little bit about ordnance, but the other part of our mission are those IEDs, improvised explosive devices. And yeah, of course, Iraq and Afghanistan are just littered with them. And for EOD techs, part of their role is like the CSI on the battlefield. So we do post-blast analysis. We collect evidence on IEDs that are found before they've exploded. And what we collect evidence and we send it up to this sexy cell. And from there, it gets that triage where it goes from one central location out to biometrics, chemical analysis, electronic analysis, and it all gets collated and then packaged to all of the intelligence agencies.
You're trying to find who the bomb makers are, where the manufacturing of these bombs are, to be able to take out the source and not just the bombs. Correct?
Exactly right. Yeah. So to speak, you say left of the bang. Right? The whole timeline from that bang, the detonation. Left of that timeline would be the emplacement. Who's the bomb emplacer? Who's the bomb maker? Who's the supplier? Who's the financier? And just like the TV shows where or movies where the bomb maker has a certain signature, how many twists in the wire or whatever. Right. Of course, in Afghanistan and sometimes even in Iraq, fingerprints are like voodoo to these guys. Mm-hmm. We try to get the signature, that the actual fingerprints as well. But we want to get further down that line left of the brain.